The New York Jets have a problem. What is going on, Jet fans? Matt O'Leary here with another video. It doesn't feel like long ago that I finished up my post-game video. I guess it's because it was like literally 8 hours ago. By the time I'm recording this morning, did not sleep well. Still don't feel great. I'm sure you guys feel the exact same way. But kind of a little bit of an extension of the video from last night, my post-game reaction or thoughts into discussing really a problem that the Jets have with this team. And I know that's very vague, but that's meant to be vague because the problems run from the top down through the bottom. So we're going to start at the top with Woody Johnson and the Johnson family. Honestly, and you can say I'm just reactionary to this, but I don't think that's the case. This is kind of how I felt for a while, but thought, maybe Aaron Rodgers would mask some of this and a good team, a talented team would mask some of this, but I'm not convinced the Jets will do anything of consequence with Woody Johnson as the owner of this team. I know they had a lot of success, or a lot relative to where they are now. For the first bit of my life, I mean, the first, till 2010, in the 2000s, the Jets were actually pretty good, but a lot of that was off the heels of the Bill Parcells era. He laid the foundation of that team, really came in and changed the culture, which is something they need to do again. And you thought they were doing in 2021, but that was probably it, right? Like win a division in 2002, win a playoff game in 2004, win a couple playoff games in 09 and 10. You make the playoffs in 1, 2, 4, 6, 9, 10. It's not, no one's, you're not raising banners over that, but you're nowhere close to the absolute embarrassment that you are now. But it's just been so bad for so long. We're looking at like 15 years, a decade and a half of just ineptitude, and one winning season over that time, a fluky 2015 year with a journeyman quarterback in Ryan Fitzpatrick. I don't know. I said last night, but I still feel the same way. I don't know how this gets fixed, and I don't think Woody Johnson meddling here does anything good. Owners who meddle don't win. It's very rare to see. Anytime an owner gets so involved in their team's day-to-day operations where it has any sort of success. He's the one who fired Robert Saleh. I'm not saying I disagree with the thought of firing Robert Saleh. He was getting canned at the end of the year anyway. Especially if the season was going this way, but they were trying to spark the team and trying to get something out of it. I have no gripes with them firing Robert Saleh, trading for Adams. You get Hassan Reddick in here. That all three of those things were really on Woody Johnson. Joe Douglas didn't really have as big of a part in that as the owner did. Here's what Woody Johnson needs to do. I don't think he would ever do it. I think his ego is going to get in the way. He needs to hire a general manager or a president of football operations and let them run the day-to-day. Your job as an owner, you can show up to every single game, be a fan and root. You have to let the football people make the football decisions, and you need to provide the money. And this year, he paid up and provided the money to trade for Devontae Adams, which was good, to pay the fines of Hassan Reddick, which is good. I'll give him credit for that, to make the change and pay a coach who's not here anymore in Robert Saleh. But it's selective. They didn't do that last year when Aaron Rodgers went down, and they stayed put at quarterback. They didn't bring in a backup quarterback last year in the offseason. But then there's other signs, and I'm going to bring it up again, and some people don't like to hear about it, but I'm sorry. They made a lot of decisions this offseason, or a few decisions this offseason, that really came down to money. They didn't offer John Franklin Myers a new contract like the Denver Broncos did. And their defensive line, the Jets have gotten significantly worse. Now, maybe the Hassan Reddick addition now midway through the season helps things on that defensive line, but losing John Franklin Myers, Bryce Huff, Quentin Jefferson, Al Woods, and you just go right down the line. That made a really big impact on this team. And their pivots, Javon Kinlaw, Leaky Fotu, Michael Clemens, the UDFAs, have not been good enough. Have not been good enough. And that's maybe a good transition to Joe Douglas, who I don't think he's as good as some of the fan base thinks he is. My stance on Joe Douglas going into the year was the same with Robert Saleh. They need to win this year. They need to prove to be a playoff team. And I thought and think he's done an okay job here as a general manager, but okay is treated like statue worthy by some Jet fans. He's not as good as what I think a large portion of the fan base thinks he is. The team that he has built is not a good football team. He's 29-61 as a GM. I know people don't like to count those first 2 years, so even if you exclude 2019 and 2020, he's 20-38 in the last 4 years. He's on his way to a 6th straight losing season, and I just don't know how you justify bringing back a general manager after they've had 6 losing seasons in a row. And granted, like, there's context and nuance. It's not as black and white as that, but teams, it's not supposed to take 6 years to get things straightened out and to go from a poor team to a team that is competing for, a playoff spot. Even I won't even say championship. I'll say playoff spot. And there's talented players here, but they're not a good team. And that kind of gets into the transition from the up top ownership, general manager, and then the players. They're talented, but they are not a good team. And yeah, that sounds crazy, but there is a difference. There is a massive difference. And I know, like, we don't love football cliches, and sometimes it's very boring or generic to just say this cliche, but it's the truth. There's a lot of talent on this team, but they do not work together, and they are a soft, mentally weak team that quits at the first sign of adversity, and that's been the case for a long time. 2022, it happened. They got off to an unbelievable start. They go ice cold down the stretch. They end up finishing 7-10 after a 7-4 start to their year. 2023, yeah, they won the first game after Rodgers went down, but I don't know if it was just poor quarterback play or poor coaching or poor play calling. Felt like they quit in big spots or couldn't get up for big spots. The season was still technically alive for that game down in Miami last year. Came out so flat, so not ready. And now this year, they go up 2-1 on their season. Looks like they're looking good. A divisional win against the New England Patriots. And then they drop 4 games in a row in just absolutely heartbreaking fashion. They're not getting blown out, but they're not finding ways to win. And I talked about it during the week last week. The Steelers are pretty much the exact opposite of the New York Jets because their roster does not have the same talent level that the Jets have on paper, but they are such a better football team. It is not even close. They are well coached. They find ways to win, even if they win ugly. The game last night was not an ugly win for them. They scored 31 unanswered points in the game. 31 unanswered points. They beat the crap out of the Jets after the interception at the 2-minute warning. And that's what it was. That changed the entire game. But they find ways to win. Good teams find ways to win. Starts at the top with ownership, then the general manager and coaching staff, and then the players. There is problems with all of that with the Jets. It's not just one thing. You can't just say, oh, well, the players aren't good enough. They're not, but it's not just that. You can't say, oh, Joe Douglas is the coaching. Actually, we'll start with the coach. Coaching is good enough. Joe Douglas built a good roster, and this team is good. They just can't win. That's on the coach. Part of it is, but it's not all on the coach. General manager put this team of seemingly misfits right now together. There is there talent? Yeah, I'm not going to deny that there's talent. There's also obvious holes as well on this roster. The safety position was a big problem going into the year. Defensive line got significantly worse. The offensive line additions that Joe Douglas made have not been very good. The quarterback hasn't been good enough. Rodgers hasn't been good enough. There's times where he looks good. He's better than Zach Wilson and anyone they rostered last year, but it's not good enough. They could be 2-5 right now with, I don't know, pick just about any other quarterback. And obviously Woody. Like I said, I don't think they win anything of significance with Woody Johnson as the owner. I hope they prove me wrong, but that's where I'm at. Let me know your thoughts. I'm Matt O'Leary, and I'll catch you next time.